Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a beautiful game that shows that Magnus Carlsen is not only a great attacker in chess, it shows also that Magnus Carlsen is really one of the best defensive players of all times. I would dare to even say the best player of all times when it comes to defensive chess, when it comes to recognize defensive patterns, defensive ideas, because in this game against the Javokhir Sindarov from the titled cup on chess.com, Magnus Carlsen got really pressured with an amazing piece sacrificed by Javokhir, but then he pulled off really two important defensive ideas. First of all, a beautiful counterattack, but also recognizing the possibility to give back material, because sometimes in chess your opponent is maybe sacrificing something, sacrifices a piece, and then you're trying to hang on to your extra piece too much because you don't want to give it back. So giving back material is really one of the most important defensive concepts, I would say, in chess for sure. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. Magnus Carlsen opened with move e4, e5 by Javokhir Sindarov, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c5, the Italian game, knight to f6, two knights defense, d3, modern bishop's stuff. We have now h6 preventing in some lines bishop to g5. Here we have a4 by Magnus, d6, c3, common stuff of course of the Italian opening, preparing also the move d4 here from white's perspective, but also queenside expansion maybe with b4, b5. We have now the move g5, which is a very aggressive method by Javokhir Sindarov. Not a mistake or something, I would say, although you leave yourself here a weakness on f5, but it's really unpleasant, I would say, also to face now this attack from white's perspective, because with the move a4 you already showed your cards that you're probably not going to castle queenside, and if you castle too early, maybe kingside here, then you could face a kingside flank attack by black. So really unpleasant to handle, but Magnus Carlsen played first of all the counter attack on the queenside with the move b4, which is also sort of a theoretical novelty here by white. We have now bishop to g7, castling by Magnus, castling also by Javokhir, knight to d2, knight to e7. Here Javokhir is preparing now his grip around the square e4. Here he's trying knight to g6, knight to f4. Magnus of course is trying somehow to reroute this knight, maybe with rook to e1, then knight to f1, knight to e3, or knight to g3, and then control further the f5 square. So both players are searching for weak square in their opponent's camps. We have now bishop to b3 by Magnus, knight to g6, pretty equal position I would say, but now comes this idea in a different way. Magnus is trying to reroute the knight on f5. We have now to move g4 by Javokhir, forces now the reaction here by white, because the h4 square was of course taken with the move knight to g6. Magnus has to play now a passive move, knight from f to d2, and now d5. You see, Javokhir is playing here really beautiful aggressive chess in the center of the board. He's sensing that there are maybe some tactical possibilities in the game, because Magnus Carlsen's position, we have to say, it is a little bit cramped, especially because of this knight on d2. The bishop is of course blocked out by its own knight. It doesn't have so far a great activity. Magnus goes with knight to e3. What should you do? If you play here d4, from black's perspective, you could be aggressive here in order to maybe to get an extra tempo against the knight, but then actually knight to f5 is working, and then you have to take. You don't want to, of course, tolerate this unpleasant knight, and you're trying something like this, knight to c4. Very complicated game to play, because the bishop becomes now a powerful piece. Maybe you're trying something like this, bishop to f4. I'm not sure. Look at this, maybe c6, f3. I just analyzed one line at home. It seemed to me like black could have something, but actually the bishop pair is simply too powerful here. Look at this, bishop to d6. You're vulnerable around the square f7. Of course, white and black don't have to play the game like this, but I wanted to really see what would happen maybe if d4 would be maybe black's next move with a very aggressive play in the center of the board. But actually it's not working, because the f5 square I think is simply too weak, and then this bishop becomes a monster here all over the board. So that's why c6 by Javokhir. He's fixing now his structure in the center of the board. Magnus goes with rook to e1, rook to e8, and now queen to c2, protecting further the e4 pawn. Bishop to e6. Javokhir is competing, of course, against this powerful bishop on b3, and now rook to b1. This move I really liked by Magnus, because he realized that the queen could be a little bit too overloaded to both of these pieces, to maybe the square e4 and also to the bishop on b3. Rook to b1 applies this principle that you have to play with the last piece that hasn't participated so far in the game. So rook to b1, good move here by Magnus Carlsen. But now Javokhir, you see, he's an aggressive player. He's playing now h5, saying I have many pieces that are on this side of the board. I can simply continue now the pressure here on this side of the board. And when we come watch now the common computer evaluations here, my engine at home says that black is even slightly better here. So great play so far by Javokhir. Knight to f1 by Magnus. He's searching again for the f5 square. We have now queen to d7 and now knight to g3. Rook from a to d8 was now maybe even the first inaccuracy by Javokhir. Maybe knight to e7 to control further the f5 square was more important to play. He played now rook from a to d8. Now Magnus goes for the f5 square, and now we have d takes e4. But nothing lost. The position is pretty equal again for both sides. D takes e4, queen to d3. Good move by Javokhir, simplifying the game and simply going now for the weakness on e4. Magnus finds now this counterattack. Bishop to c2. Rook drops back because if you take here, then the rook could be trapped with knight to d1. You're trying maybe something like this, knight to e3. Very complicated position then, of course, here for black. After bishop to c2, Javokhir simply retreated. We have now the move g3, bishop to f8, and now after king to g2, now comes what is in my opinion the critical moment of this game. Here Javokhir, a beautiful young talented attacking player, found really it's seemingly a great move, knight to f4, but actually it's a mistake. But I guarantee you 90% of players would be destroyed by this move. Knight to f4, such an unpleasant now position to handle for Magnus, because actually you have to react. Otherwise this knight is coming on d3, will play the fork against maybe the rook and the bishop. You would be maybe even forced to give up your light square bishop here for the knight. Black would then continue with the bishop pair, which is of course a good choice. Actually white should be winning here, but you have to be really a tactical monster in order to find now the best solutions. Magnus goes with g takes f4, says here, show me what you got. And the issue is that after e takes f4, the knight on e3 doesn't have good squares. You cannot go to d5, you cannot go to c4, you cannot of course go to g4. If you retreat to the back rank here to f1 or maybe to d1, whatever happens, the issue is here after knight to f1 and bishop to f5, the rooks are disconnected, and that was actually Magnus Carlsen's problem through the whole game that we have talked about already in the beginning of the video, when the knight was blocking out the potential activity of the dark square bishop. Now you cannot take because of rook takes e1. The rooks are disconnected and it would be game over. But after e takes f4, now comes the first very important defensive idea here by Magnus Carlsen: counterattack. The counterattack you have to recognize in your own games, because sometimes we get stunned by our opponent's tactics, and then we just freeze what the hell happened here, but we don't recognize maybe the possibility of a counterattack. e5, knight to d7 here by Javokhir, and now Magnus plays knight to f1. Now after bishop to d5, Magnus went with king to g1, and after knight to e5, the threat is of course knight to f3, but now Magnus plays another important defensive idea, which is giving back material. You cannot rely simply on the material that you gained through the tactical sequence. Now Magnus gave up now the rook, which is basically the only move here. You have to go give up the rook for a knight, but then you continue like this, and after bishop to f4, Magnus gets back into the game, and here he actually played the optimal line also suggested by any engines. And the cool part is this is a blitz game, 3+2 on chess.com, and Magnus sees all of that. I think many of us would be destroyed by this tactic by Javokhir Sindarov, but now Magnus can breathe again. Look at this, bishop is out, bishop on c2, very well placed, knight on f5, cemented on a beautiful square. This knight with a certain flexibility to get on g3, e3, you have a great control now of any square on the board. Bishop to e4, bishop takes, rook takes, and now bishop to e3, locking out now the e file, not allowing something like rook to e to happen. The f6, we have knight to g3. Now Magnus simply applies simple attacks against this rook, creates, of course, always an attack against black's pieces. Bishop to d4, cementing everything on this side of the board. King to f7, Magnus takes a pawn. Now you see slowly but surely black's position is collapsing. King to g6, knight to e3, the fork. Here Javokhir gave up now some material, but now Magnus finds another beautiful move, b5. Simply, he's saying here, okay, I'll lose maybe my a4 pawn, but at least my rook gets active, and with the situation where I have up a piece, I could of course get many attacking chances. Great again move here by Magnus, allowing this stuff, but now black continues with 3-4 weaknesses when it comes to pawn structures here all over the board. Magnus has still 2 pawns on the board, but now the knights will of course get back into the game, and it's very completely winning endgame here for white. But okay, Javokhir battled after rook to c1. He tried c5. Magnus improves the position of the king, attacks now the bishop, activates now the rook on the most active square now, attacks the bishop, attacks the pawn. Javokhir played now the move c4. Magnus grabbed now another pawn, attacked simply again the bishop, and after bishop to g5 in this position, Javokhir Sindarov simply resigned. So great game by Magnus, I would say. Many of us, I would say, would be stunned by this move, knight to f4, what to do, and then I don't know, after something like g takes f4, many of us would, I don't know, play knight takes g4 or something, wouldn't recognize the possibility of e5, and then giving up then the rook on e5. Great defensive play by Magnus Carlsen. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Interesting stuff here again by Javokhir Sindarov and Magnus Carlsen. If you want to see some other commented chess games here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our playlist, our commented chess games, and also our commented chess games played by computers. And if you don't want to miss anything, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.